Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Over Memorial Day weekend, the celebrated Star Wars franchise had its first box office failure. Solo, a Star Wars movie, was the first Star Wars movie to actually flop at the box office. Now, estimated projections for Solo, a Star Wars movie, what were supposed to be $130 to $150 million at the box office over Memorial Day weekend. However, Solo, a Star Wars movie, barely opened to an $83 million box office opening. Now, an $83 million box office opening would be considered a success for a film. However, a film that was supposed to be a part of the celebrated Star Wars franchise was supposed to come in and perform extremely well. Unfortunately, when it came down to Solo, a Star Wars movie, had a lot of negative press around it. And a lot of that negative press didn't come from the media of the big six corporations. It came from many of the Star Wars fans out there. Many of the Star Wars fans who were deeply upset over the previous film in the Star Wars franchise, The Last Jedi, a film many feel betrayed the source material of Star Wars, betrayed the mythology of Star Wars, and betrayed the lore of Star Wars. And when they took a look at Solo, a Star Wars movie, they saw further betrayal of the Star Wars lore and the Star Wars mythology. And that negative buzz is what really destroyed the box office sales for this film, even before a single frame of film was shot. Now, when it came down to Solo, a Star Wars movie, Solo had a lot of issues going on with it. The actor himself, Alden Ehrenreich, wasn't a very good actor. And when it came down to the film's script and direction, this film went through several directors before Ron Howard was brought in to try to clean up the mess of Solo, a Star Wars movie. So the film was starting out, even in production, with serious issues. And the negative buzz from The Last Jedi and the negative buzz for Solo was one of the things that wasn't giving people a lot of incentive to get really excited about Solo, a Star Wars movie. And all of this negative buzz, especially among the fans, was one of the things that really led to the film dying at the box office. Because over the course of 2017 and 2018, I have heard numerous Star Wars fans complaining about Solo, a Star Wars movie, in the same way I saw many comic fans on message boards getting deeply angry and upset over the 2004 film Catwoman. Now, I remember back in 2003, 2004, being on message boards like Superhero Hype and the DC Comics message boards and listening to the anger of those comic fans when Catwoman was announced and when they were talking about production of Catwoman. And when they released the picture of Halle Berry dressed as Catwoman, instead of there being a lot of fervor and excitement for that Catwoman movie, what happened was we saw comic fans explode in anger because the Catwoman costume Halle Berry was wearing, which featured a bra top, some belts strapped across it, leather pants, and open-toed boots, was nothing like the Selina Kyle, the slinky cat burglar who was Batman's nemesis in the comic books. And when they learned the name of this Catwoman was going to be Patience Phillips, and her powers would be her getting powers to be just like a cat, that's when comic fans were extremely irate and they went on message boards roasting this movie and talking about how bad this film was going to be. And the film, just like your Solo, a Star Wars story, originally started with a director who, in many cases, didn't have that much experience because Patoff, this was his second film after his critically acclaimed Vidok. And what happened was he took this film hoping to elevate his career, not understanding that this film was designed to be a complete failure. I mean, it did not stay true to the source material, it did not stay true to the characters, and it did not stay true to the story. And the film had a big budget, but it did not have the underpinnings of what would be a film comic fans could get behind. And Solo, a Star Wars story, was the exact same thing. It was a film that did not have anything of substance that Star Wars fans could get behind. Because after being burned by The Last Jedi and watching Luke Skywalker not act like the Luke Skywalker we all grew up with in the original trilogy, that's what really upset a lot of Star Wars fans. And then to hear about Solo, a Star Wars story featuring a young Han Solo who was cast and looks absolutely nothing like Han Solo, that was strike one for this film. Then there was strike two as related to the script and the numerous director changes. And strike three, I believe, was when a few weeks before this film was supposed to be released, the announcement by one of the screenwriters that Lando Calrissian was a pansexual. Now, when it comes down to the Star Wars franchise, the Star Wars franchise has always been a family-oriented franchise, a family-friendly franchise, and when I look at recent actions by Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, she has made decisions that have turned Star Wars away from what it was originally intended to be. She has compromised a lot of the characters so she can push her feminist and identity politics narrative, and she's made the Star Wars mythology and Star Wars lore, she's literally trampled all over it in an effort to push her feminist and social justice agenda by using Star Wars characters. And this has alienated a lot of Star Wars fans who just want to see their favorite characters, and they wanted to see the the later saga of the intergalactic war featuring people who they grew up to become their friends, like Luke Skywalker, like Han Solo, and Princess Leia, and they wanted to see those characters pass on their legacy to the next generation of characters. Unfortunately, due to the way Kathleen Kennedy set up the new trilogy, we did not get to see those great heroes from those 1980s and late 1970s original Star Wars trilogy pass their legacy on to the next generation of characters. Instead, we saw Han Solo killed off ignominiously by his own son. We saw Luke Skywalker, an angry, bitter old man, and we saw Princess Leia literally turned into Superwoman with the Force. And with these other characters, we saw characters we could not identify with or relate to, and I believe that the young Han Solo was like the straw that broke the camel's back for many Star Wars fans who felt like they suffered through The Force Awakens and felt completely slapped in the face with The Last Jedi. And many of those fans, after being burnt by The Last Jedi, just decided to vote with their wallet and make a statement with Solo, a Star Wars story. And I believe they're going to make another statement when Episode 9 opens in a year or so. Because when it comes down to many Star Wars fans, they are frustrated. Many Star Wars fans are angry. And again, many Star Wars fans feel betrayed by Kathleen Kennedy, and they feel betrayed by what she did to these characters who were beloved for over 40 years and what she did to their legend. Because what she did was, instead of staying true to the history of Star Wars, staying true to the story of Star Wars, staying true to the lore of Star Wars, she decided to revise these characters' history and revise these characters' narrative to fit her feminist agenda, fit her social justice agenda, and shoehorn identity politics into stories where there was no need to shoehorn identity politics. And what that did was alienate years of Star Wars fans who had followed this franchise for over 40 years, and it gave them no incentive to continue buying tickets to see new movies in the Star Wars franchise. Now, when I take a look at this Star Wars franchise after the failure of Solo, a Star Wars story, to be successful at the box office, shows me that there needs to be a new direction as related to the Star Wars franchise and the Star Wars brand. And Disney desperately needs to fire Kathleen Kennedy and anyone who works with her, because it's clear to me that she has destroyed the Star Wars franchise. She has destroyed the Star Wars brand, and her efforts to shoehorn identity politics and social justice agendas and feminist agendas into Star Wars, it's something that just doesn't work. It's something that needs to be dealt with, and it's something that needs to be removed from the Star Wars lore, and it needs to be removed as soon as possible. I believe that after the failure of Solo, a Star Wars story, there is nothing else Disney can do to win back many Star Wars fans except start by announcing that Kathleen Kennedy will no longer be working on the Lucasfilm brand or working with the Star Wars characters. Because if they hope to win back many of those fans, that's the first step they need to make towards winning back those fans. Now, I don't know if they'll be able to repair much of the damage because when we look at two beloved characters being killed off, I don't see much they can do in trying to win back fans except creating a new franchise that can win back those viewers and creating a new franchise featuring new characters in another time or another place in a galaxy far, far away, in a galaxy far, far away and a long time ago. That's the only thing that I can see to redeeming the Star Wars brand is getting as far away from the original trilogy characters and creating a new group of characters and creating a new conflict on another side of the galaxy featuring an entirely new cast. That's the only way I believe you could ever redeem the Star Wars brand or rebuild that Star Wars brand. However, you cannot start that rebuilding until the Kathleen Kennedy is terminated and fans see her being terminated by Bob Iger, because that's the only way we can start healing all of the bad will that's out there and all the angry feelings, because the customers want to see somebody in charge of Star Wars who loves Star Wars, cares about Star Wars, someone who's grown up with the Star Wars lore, and someone who wants to stay true to the Star Wars mythology and the Star Wars lore, and wants to honor those characters in a way that honors the past and allows people to move forward into the future. In the same way, a lot of Batman comic fans saw the Batman character move forward with Batman Beyond. Now, when I take a look at Batman Beyond, I look at the way Bruce Wayne was acknowledged in the first episode, and it paid homage to the reason for Bruce Wayne becoming Batman, and it led to the close of his era in that first episode in the first 5 minutes, and then ushered in the era of Terry McGinnis and allowed us to see the relationship between Terry and Bruce, and that's why the Batman Beyond character was accepted by an entire generation of Batman fans, and Batman Beyond is considered one of the most respected parts of the Batman lore because it stayed true to the source material, it respected the source material, and it showed a direct connection between the past and allowed us to move forward towards the future. And that's what Star Wars needed to do with this new trilogy. Unfortunately, Kathleen Kennedy dropped the ball, but again, I see that there's a way to try to revive or repair the Star Wars brand, but again, it's going to require a completely different conflict, a completely different conflict set for the 21st century, and a completely different set of heroes who will be the heroes that the kids of today can relate to in a way that people haven't been able to relate to your Finns, your Rays, and your Rose Ticos. When they look at those characters, they don't see people that are like themselves. What they see are characters who are ciphers for political agendas and diversity agendas, and that's not what Star Wars was all about. Star Wars originally was a commentary about war, and it was about how war brought people together, and it brought people together from different parts of galaxy, different parts of life, and how it brought those people together to work for a common cause. And that's something that was missing from this new trilogy because everybody was disconnected, everybody was out of place, and everybody was doing their own thing, and no one was coming together in the way people did during the original trilogy. In the original trilogy, we saw people becoming like friends and family, and we never saw that happen in the two movies of the new trilogy. And that's something we really do need to see if they want to continue the Star Wars brand, because it was that whole bringing together of people that brought people to the theaters to watch the Star Wars movie, because as they saw those people coming together, they saw a reason to come together and be a part of this fantasy and be a part of this franchise. And that's what people want to see regarding Star Wars. And when I look at Solo, a Star Wars movie, I see it as what should be the nail in the coffin, along with Episode 9, and it should be the end of the line for Kathleen Kennedy, and the start of a new direction for Star Wars and the Star Wars brand in a couple of years. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.